This isn't one of those videos that's going to hype you up, because honestly, if you need motivation to do something, what happens when the motivation disappears? What happens when the goal gets boring? When you've been working for months and the results aren't coming? When you wake up tired? When life gets busy? When nobody is watching you? That's where most people start negotiating. I'll do it tomorrow. I just need a break. I'll start again on Monday. And I've done it too. But I've learned something. Motivation is great for starting things. It's terrible for finishing them, because eventually every meaningful goal becomes boring. Your body, your business, your marriage, your finances, even being the father you want to be. At some point, the excitement disappears and you're left with a decision. Do I still do what I said I was going to do? That's where discipline begins. And I don't actually think motivation is bad. I use it, and you probably use it too. You hear something that fires you up, right? You set a goal, you buy the equipment, create the plan. Monday morning comes and you're ready to change your life. There's nothing wrong with that. The mistake, I feel, is building your life around needing that feeling, because motivation is emotional and emotions change. Some mornings I wake up ready to attack the day. Other mornings, not so much, right? But I've got a significant other. I've got daughters. I've got a career. I've got a business I'm rebuilding. I've got a body that I'm responsible for taking care of. And my responsibilities don't disappear because I don't feel motivated, and neither do yours. And that's why I've stopped asking myself, do I feel like doing this? That's the wrong question. The better question is, what did I say I was going to do? Because if the answer changes based on how I feel, I didn't really make a commitment. I made a preference. And there's a huge difference between those two things. I've learned this lesson through business. I've had periods where I was completely locked in. There was a new idea, new strategy, new offer. I'd build the website, create the plans, work late, reach out to people. Everything feels exciting because I believe the payoff was right around the corner. But then a few weeks would pass, or months, no explosion in sales, no huge audience growth, no immediate proof that what I was doing was working. And suddenly the work didn't feel exciting anymore. I remember planning to wake up early on Saturday and create content. Alarm goes off. I open my eyes and immediately I'm thinking, what's the point? Nobody's watching anyway. So I went back to sleep. It seemed harmless. It was one morning, but one morning became the weekend. Then I started missing other things I said I was going to do. And eventually I realized I had quit without ever making the decision to quit. That's how a lot of our goals die. Not with some dramatic moment where we say, I give up. We just slowly stop showing up. And looking back, my biggest problem wasn't strategy. I had built my execution around how I felt. When motivation showed up, I showed up. When motivation disappeared, so did I. And that's a dangerous way to live, because every time you tell yourself you're going to do something and don't, you're teaching yourself something. You're teaching yourself that your word is negotiable. Do that enough times and eventually you stop trusting yourself. And this is why I've started looking at discipline differently. Discipline isn't just forcing yourself to do things that you hate. Discipline is keeping promises to yourself. That's it. You said you're training today, train. You said you're going to finish that project, finish it. You said you're putting away the phone and spending time with your kids, put it away. You said you're working on the business tonight, do the work. Every one of those moments seem insignificant, but you're collecting evidence. Every promise you keep says, I'm someone I can trust. Every promise you repeatedly break says the opposite. And eventually those actions become our identity. And that's why I'm not trying to become someone who's motivated all the time. That's impossible. I'm trying to become somebody who doesn't need motivation to keep his word. That's a completely different standard. And fitness taught me this better than almost anything else, because the gym doesn't care about how motivated you are. When I say I'm training at 5 a.m., eventually there's going to be a morning when that alarm goes off and I don't want to move. That's the moment that matters. Not the workout where I'm excited, not the new program, not the day I feel strong, the boring Tuesday when nobody would know if I skip. That's where I'm practicing something bigger than fitness. I'm practicing Do what you said you were going to do. And every time I do it, I'm collecting evidence that my word means something. That's why I say fitness is visible proof of discipline. But the real goal is transferring that discipline, because I don't just want to be disciplined in the gym. I want it when I'm building my business. I want it in my relationships. I want it as a father. I want it with my finances. I want it when I'm tired, frustrated, overwhelmed, or uncertain. The gym is practice. Life is where the discipline has to transfer. And here's something else I've had to kind of accept. And most of what produces extraordinary results is boring. It's repetition. It's the same workout, the same meal, the same sales activity, the same content schedule, the same bedtime routine, the same morning routine, again and again and again. Everybody loves the breakthrough. Nobody talks about the 200 boring repetitions that created it. And that's why people constantly change strategies. A new workout, new business idea, a productivity system, a goal, a plan. Novelty makes us feel like we're progressing, but eventually you have to stay somewhere long enough to get good. Motivation loves novelty. Discipline can tolerate repetition, and mastery requires repetition. So I've stopped automatically interpreting boredom as a sign of something isn't working. Sometimes boredom means that you're finally doing the work long enough for it to work. So here's what I'm working on now. Instead of trying to feel motivated, I'm trying to create standards, because standards eliminate negotiation. If I say I'm training 5 days this week, that's the standard. If I say I'm posting long form video content, that's the standard. If I say I'm spending this time with my family, that's the standard. That doesn't mean life never happens. I'm a father, a husband, I have responsibilities. Things change. But there's a difference between adjusting because life genuinely required it and negotiating because you simply didn't feel like doing the work. We know the difference. And that's why one of the simplest questions I'm asking myself is, what did I say I was going to do? Then do that. Not 20 things. Start with a few promises you can actually keep, because keeping 3 promises every day will build more self-trust than making 15 and constantly breaking them. So maybe you don't need another motivational video. Maybe you don't need another speech. Maybe you don't need somebody screaming at you to get up and grind. Maybe you need something much simpler. You need your word to mean something again. Pick the thing you said you were going to do and do that, especially when it's boring, especially when you don't feel like it, especially when nobody is watching you, because that's the moment you're actually building discipline. And if you're an ambitious man, trying to build a business, raise a family, improve your body, advance your career, and become more, you can't afford to require motivation for everything. There are too many responsibilities, too many goals, too many people depending on you. At some point, you have to become a man who can tell himself, it's getting done, and trust that it will. That's what I'm working toward. Not perfect discipline, not endless motivation, self-trust. Becoming a man whose actions consistently match what he says matters to him. So here's the question. What's one thing you said you were going to do that you've been waiting to feel motivated to do? You already know what it is. Don't wait for the feeling. Go keep the promise. I'll see you in the next one. Persist until success happens. Push.